All right, here we go. At the risk of everyone unsubscribing from my channel right here in about the next 10 seconds, I'm just gonna say it. Science proves that reading is the absolute best form of entertainment that there is. All right, now that most people have clicked away, I'm gonna try to explain myself. And yes, of course, I'm using hyperbole, but let's talk about delayed gratification. Delayed gratification, or deferred gratification, is the resistance to the temptation of an immediate pleasure in the hope of obtaining a valuable and long-lasting reward in the long term. In other words, delayed gratification describes the process that the subject undergoes when the subject resists the temptation of immediate reward in preference for a later reward. Generally, delayed gratification in association with resisting smaller but more immediate reward in order to receive a larger reward or more enduring reward later. A growing body of literature has linked the ability to delay gratification to a host of other positive outcomes, including academic success, physical health, psychological health, and social competence. So yeah, basically I'm going to extrapolate that to, if you're a reader, you're better than everyone else. Now, obviously that's not what I mean, but I will try to use the concept of delayed gratification to explain why I think reading is such a rewarding experience. And if you're thinking ahead of me, you probably know where I'm going. If you've fallen into any YouTube hole of any kind, you've probably seen some sort of test where a kid is put into a room and they're handed candy, it's like on the table, and they're told that if they don't eat the candy now, they'll get a reward, but if they eat the candy now, then they eat the candy now. Generally, the line of thinking that goes along with the test is if the kid does not eat the candy that's in front of them, they get more candy later on. And the statistics and studies that surround delayed gratification essentially show that if the child has the self-control to be able to not eat the candy in front of them, they also might exhibit positive behaviors in their lives, that if they have self-control, they're going to make less bad decisions in favor of making good decisions. And I'm not necessarily here to dive super deep into the psychology of life decisions, but what I am here to do is to try to say this might be why reading, for the people that enjoy reading, especially the people that are watching this channel, they might be reading science fiction or fantasy, that is like huge freaking chunker books, why they find this such a rewarding experience when the average person doesn't actually read all that much. And I think it boils down to the fact that of the types of media that we can consume for entertainment purposes, there is something to be said for longer form medium having a bigger impact because there's more time to build up the foreshadowing, the character development, the plot hints, and the plot delivery at the end. Like, I think there is something to be said for the reason that books hit so hard if you're able to read through them is that they have so much more time to build up that sort of internal hype within itself to make the final delivery, if it's executed well, just so freaking good. Instant gratification is like the opposite of this, which is when you engage with something to get an immediate hit of dopamine. I guess technically drugs are probably the fastest way to instant gratification, but a common source of instant gratification of some sort is social media. When you post something on social media and you immediately get positive feedback for it, it creates a brain loop that makes social media so addicting. That's why people like talk about the benefits of not engaging in social media too much, having controls over that. It's why sometimes when people take a social media break, they seem to have better mental health. You know what I'm saying? I say as I'm making a YouTube video, which I intend to post on YouTube to get some of that immediate gratification. But what I'm trying to say is the amount of time that we put into something can amplify greatly the amount of reward that we receive from that thing. The mere fact that books are as long as they are allows us to engage with them more and on a deeper level, or at least on a more time level, in a way that when the conclusion comes, it hits with a greater sense of satisfaction, like a greater feel-good dopamine high than most other types of media. And I think a lot of it's just due to time. And I feel like I am preaching to the choir here, because if you're watching this channel, you've likely read a lot of books, or you likely want to read books for this reason. But it's also why something that's this huge series like The Wheel of Time or The Dresden Files, or more recently I've experienced Cradle, like the fact that there are so many books and the fact that things in these books can pay off over such a long period of time means that you put aside some of your instant gratification by choosing to engage with the book in the first place. You choose to read it for tens and tens of hours, hundreds of hours in some cases. And if the author executes what they're trying to do properly, when you finally get the reward of spending so much time with the series and the payoff happens, it's just oh so sweet. I think this might be the reason why a lot of modern visual mediums lean heavily on the miniseries form of presentation instead of just going for a 2-hour movie. movie. You see, a 2-hour movie takes 2 hours and can only contain the world building and cohesive structure of something that is 2 hours. But if you make a 6 or 8 hour miniseries, then you have 6 or 8 hours, and you get to spend longer in that world. You get to spend longer seeing those characters grow, and the attachment that you have with them becomes a lot greater when you spend more time with them. You also have more seeds that you can plant, more forms of delayed gratification to place into this form of media than you do with something that's just a regular movie or a quick like sitcom. If you open up a streaming service on your phone and you pick one of your favorite songs, you are going to get the immediate gratification of this 3 to 5 minute song that you absolutely love, affecting your mood in this 3 to 5 minute time span, and it's really powerful. Music, especially, I think, is actually really powerful on a different level than a lot of other types of medium, but I'm talking about just like a short song is gratifying for a short amount of time, especially if it's like a pop song, something you can understand right away, completely vibe with right away, and then pop out of. But if you sit down and watch a movie, that might really stick with you a lot longer. It might be more powerful. It might make you feel things on a deeper level because you have a deeper connection to that thing that took a longer amount of time to pay off. But if you read a 50 to 100 hour fantasy series, look at the amount of depth that's possible in there. And if the author does a really good job about teasing things out over time, progressively revealing the secrets of their universe, it's freaking good. Additionally, looking at the definition for delayed gratification, it sort of indicates that if you're the type of person that knows that if you invest time into something like a book and you spend that time cultivating that habit, the ability to be able to read a book over time and spend more effort and time to get something greater out of it, you might also have better life-making decisions in general. I don't know what that means. That being said, sometimes you're reading a book that's super long and it's not really working for you at all. And when you finish that book, you feel disappointed that you wasted all that time instead of doing something that you actually enjoyed or spent your time engaging with something, even if it was something that took a long time or a lot of effort and you got a real, like, actually satisfying experience instead of reading a crappy book. Let's talk about a different psychological concept. This concept is the sunk cost fallacy. A sunk cost fallacy is a fallacy where someone convinces themselves that they should continue doing something because they put a lot of time and effort into it, even if they actually get very little reward out of it. For instance, let's say you've read 6 books of The Wheel of Time, and you say, well, there's only 15 books in The Wheel of Time. I've already read 6 of them. I might as well read the rest of them, even though you may not be enjoying The Wheel of Time. This is the fallacy that says because you've put a lot of time into something, even if it's not actually rewarding you, you feel like you should go ahead and spend the rest of the time finishing the thing because otherwise you've wasted that time. But in reality, a lot of the times, if you're not enjoying something, especially if you're doing something like reading fantasy for fun, if you're not enjoying that time, you're wasting more time to not enjoy something longer that takes more effort than doing something that would have been enjoyable to you. There is the realistic possibility that sometimes you're reading something that doesn't feel very good, but it eventually wins you over. Some people might see this as a weird, twisted version of like Stockholm Syndrome for fun, but in reality, I do think sometimes you're engaging with something and it's able to win you over time, depending on how good it is. But the sunk cost fallacy is a fallacy for a reason, because it's true. If you've wasted time doing something that you don't enjoy, especially if it's something that's not going to pay off in any way, continuing to waste your time on something that's not going to pay off is generally a bad idea. It's not good for your brain, and it's not going to reward you in any major way. Sometimes we say, well, I'm glad I finished that book even though I didn't enjoy it, because it does feel good to say, yes, I finished something. It does feel good to check something off a list. And if you're talking about something in a group discussion, like you talk about a book you don't like in a group discussion, you can add to that discussion more accurately because you've engaged fully with the media. But unless that is enough to overcome your dislike for the book, if you're not reading a book you don't like, just stop reading it. If a book you're reading is making you angry, if you don't want to be angry, don't read it. That might be a different type of mental health decision you can make. Don't read stuff you're not enjoying. But maybe if you have the self-control to put up with something that you don't like until you actually enjoy it, then it's actually delayed gratification. Now, let's say you're the type of person that loves to read these long fantasy series and you love to enjoy them oh so very much. And because you love them so much, because they've rewarded you personally so much, you decide to engage in the fandom and then go out and spread the good word of your favorite thing. Let's talk about another interesting psychological concept: choice supportive bias. Choice supportive bias, or post-purchase rationalization, is the tendency to retroactively ascribe positive attributes to an option one has selected and or to demote the foregone options. It is part of cognitive science and is a distinctive cognitive bias that occurs once a decision is made. For example, if a person chooses option A instead of option B, they are likely to ignore or downplay the faults of option A while amplifying or ascribing new negative faults to option B. Conversely, they are also likely to notice and amplify the advantages of option A and not notice or de-emphasize those of option B. Does this sound like negative fandom interactions that you've had before? Because you have so much invested in a fantasy series or group of fans that you like or something that you enjoy, you find yourself more likely to attack those things you don't enjoy because you haven't spent the time to actually enjoy them for yourself or engage with them for yourself. At the same time, when we read negative criticism of something that we happen to be a huge fan of, we backlash immediately saying, that's not true, and we have a hard time self-introspecting or criticizing something that we hold completely dear because we are internally trying to rationalize our own decisions for why we love something when someone else may potentially have a valid reason for criticizing it. This is the choice supportive bias. And this is the major reason why I think large fandoms tend to get a negative rap. Depending on how criticism of something that you love is handled, it can sometimes feel like they're attacking you instead of attacking the media, or maybe you can identify with something so hard that you find any attack on something that you love a personal attack. Maybe someone is attacking something that you love because they haven't taken the time to enjoy it. Instead, they enjoy this other thing. Maybe because you really love to read a book. When you see the adaptation come out, you say the book is better because you spent more time associating with the book and you want to justify your time spent with that book. Or maybe someone is going to say the movie is always better than the book because they hate reading because reading takes too long and they've seen the movie and they know the movie's good. Both of these things are illogical and irrational, but it's self-defense mechanisms to try to make us think that the things that we spend our time and energy enjoying are actually worth it in a way that is valid. It could be healthy to say, I enjoy what I like and you enjoy what you like, and I can take criticism, but you have to actually be able to take the criticism. And it can be important when you're criticizing something else to understand that you might not be criticizing something else fairly. You could be criticizing it because you don't feel secure in the way that you didn't like something the way that someone else did, or you like something more than somebody else did. You know what I'm saying? Now, someone who does not like reading could ascribe both the sunk cost fallacy and choice supportive bias towards the fandoms of delayed gratification in reading, saying that you only say you love reading because you spent so much time reading that you're trying to justify that choice to yourself. Or they could say you've spent so much time reading that you have to start reading more books because of the sunk cost fallacy. Those people are freaking wrong. And I'm definitely not saying that because I struggle from both of those other two things. It's definitely the delayed gratification part, right? Why do we actually love reading? Do we have free choice? Are we just neurons firing on the emotional responses that we get when we watch movies or read books or whatever the frick? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a guy who could read definitions on Wikipedia. But my time reading these definitions on Wikipedia makes me think that I understand the topic in a way that I have to describe it to you guys in a video as content, or I feel like I wasted time trying to understand any of this at all. Maybe the very title and subject of this video is me trying to support my own choices because I don't know if I am confident enough that my time spent reading or making videos is worthwhile. But the fact that I spend my time reading and making videos has inherently forced me to continue doing so because otherwise I feel like I've wasted all of this time. Frick. If you've watched this far in the video but you have not subscribed, you might have been wasting all of your time. You might want to hit that subscribe button. That way you feel better about spending the time watching the video, because if you hit the subscribe button and you subscribe to the channel, you're supporting this channel, then the fact that the amount of time you spent watching this video will feel more justified is the perfect reason why you must subscribe to the channel. And you have to hit the like button, because if you watch this far in the video, you have to be able to justify why you wasted this much time. But if you like the video, then you're going to think that you like the video, which is going to cause you to continue thinking you like the video and talk about it in a positive light more often later on, like maybe in the comment section. Like maybe you leave a comment to further support your sunk cost fallacy into this video, for instance. And if you've already watched this video, you might as well continue watching videos that I continue posting for the future on the channel, because you've already spent the time wasted with me here now doing this. So you probably should continue to watch more videos and maybe watch some of the back catalog also. I guess that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.